What happens when a self-made CEO goes undercover at one of his own stores and finds out an employee is quietly drowning in medical bills just to keep his son alive? Zayden Harlow had built the company from his garage 15 years ago, selling custom electronics online and shipping them out by hand. One small product turned into 5, a website turned into warehouses, and now there were 5 retail locations across the state. He still remembered packaging orders with his wife at midnight, sweating through summer heat and taping boxes shut with shaky hands. But now, with over 300 employees, he didn't know most of them by name. That started bothering him. He heard reports, sure. Sales numbers, incident logs, performance reviews. But it all felt filtered. Something was off lately. Customer complaints were up, turnover at 2 of the stores had spiked, and one manager was flagged for unapproachable behavior in a recent anonymous employee survey. Zayden didn't want a slideshow presentation about it. He wanted the truth. So he shaved his beard, wore colored contacts, and picked up a fake name tag reading Miles. A corporate role out of a new point-of-sale system gave him the perfect excuse. He'd be shadowing as a temp trainee to gather feedback. He started at Store 2, a solid location in a strip mall near the city. He hadn't met any of the staff in person before. Most had been hired through district-level interviews or internal transfers. Good. They wouldn't recognize him. Miles, right? The manager, Travis, didn't look up from his tablet when Zayden walked in. Clock in at the back. We're short 2 today, so we're gonna need you up front after lunch. Zayden gave a small nod and headed back. The break room was cramped. 2 chairs missing their backs. Microwave blinking, 12 o'clock. A young woman with braids was restocking cups near the sink. Hey, I'm Miles, Zayden said. Rhea, she smiled. Don't worry, I'll show you the ropes. You ever worked retail? Not really, just learning. She laughed. Welcome to the circus. The first few hours were chaos, trouble printing receipts. A toddler throwing candy at the register. 2 customers arguing over a returned speaker. Travis mostly stayed in the office, emerging only to bark orders or sigh loudly. Rhea handled most of the pressure, never snapping even when a customer cursed at her over a $10 refund. At lunch, Zayden sat beside a lanky guy with tired eyes and scuffed shoes. You're the new guy? He asked. Yeah. Miles? Jonas, he said, sticking out a hand. You survive your first shift? Barely. You. Still standing. He chuckled but coughed into his sleeve after. Been here a while? Get used to the chaos. You always work mornings? Double shifts lately. My kid's got some health stuff, so bills don't pay themselves. Zayden nodded slowly. Tough. Hope things are okay. Jonas gave a tight smile. We manage. The way he said it, it didn't sound like managing. Later that afternoon, Zayden shadowed Jonas on a stockroom run. They were moving boxes when Jonas winced and leaned against a shelf. You all right? Zayden asked. Yeah, just back's been acting up. I'll live. You sure? Jonas straightened. Yeah, just tired. Got home at 3 last night. My son had a bad night, so I stayed up with him. Zayden didn't press, but something stuck. The next morning, he returned early. Jonas was already outside, unlocking the back door. You always open solo? Zayden asked. Lately, yeah. We're understaffed. One guy quit, another's on leave. It's just me, Rhea, and sometimes Nate. Zayden nodded, watching him struggle with the jammed lock. Inside, they stocked shelves in silence until Zayden asked, How's your son doing? Jonas hesitated. He's 6. Name's Elias. He's got a rare condition. We've been in and out of hospitals for the past year. Insurance only covers part of it. Zayden kept his voice steady. That's rough. Jonas gave a slight nod. I'm behind on everything. Rent, utilities. I've sold half my tools. But I can't cut hours. I need every shift I can get. He didn't say it with pity. He said it like a man who had no other choice. Just then, Travis called out from the front. Jonas, I don't pay you to chat. Let's go. Zayden watched Jonas put the box down and walk out like nothing had happened. Like this was normal. That night, Zayden sat in his car outside the store for over an hour. He stared at the steering wheel, jaw tight. His own son was 18, healthy, in college. He'd never once had to choose between medicine and groceries. He didn't sleep much. The next day was Friday. A district visit had been scheduled and Travis was on edge, barking at staff to straighten displays and rehearse greetings. Zayden played along, folding shirts near the front. Jonas came in late, limping slightly. You good? Zayden asked quietly. Didn't sleep? Hospital again? Elias had a fever all night. Travis stormed over. You're late. I know, No excuses. You want hours, show up on time. We're not running a charity here. Jonas looked down. Zayden's hands curled into fists. He couldn't do this yet. Not here. Not in front of customers. But he was done watching. After closing, Travis gathered the crew. District visit went fine. Let's keep this energy up. And Miles, thanks for not screwing anything up. Zayden looked around. Rhea wiped down the counter. Jonas leaned against the register, eyes closing for a second too long. He took a breath. It was time to stop pretending. I'm not a temp, he said slowly. My name's Zayden Harlow. I own this company. Silence. Rhea froze. Jonas straightened. Travis stared like he'd seen a ghost. Zayden stepped forward. And I've seen enough. Travis didn't say anything at first. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Behind him, one of the overhead lights buzzed faintly, the only sound in the room. Rhea slowly lowered the rag she'd been holding. Jonas didn't move at all. Zayden looked at each of them, then stepped around the counter. I needed to see things for myself, he said. No reports. No summaries. Just the day-to-day with the people holding this place together. Travis finally found his voice. Sir, I didn't know you were coming. If I'd known, we would've. You would have put on a show, Zayden interrupted. Exactly why I didn't tell anyone. He turned toward Jonas. I saw how hard you worked this week. I saw the hours you've been pulling, and I saw how you treated people even when you were running on fumes. You didn't complain. You didn't cut corners. You kept this place going. Jonas shifted his weight, eyes flicking to the floor. I was just doing my job. No, Zayden said. You were doing far more than that. He looked back at Travis, who was now holding his tablet like a shield. I'll be honest, Zayden said. What I saw here disappointed me. Not because of the team. Because of the way they've been managed. People don't leave jobs, they leave environments that grind them down. Travis's voice was quieter now. I was just following protocol. Protocol doesn't excuse indifference, Zayden said. I saw people getting ignored when they needed support. I saw tasks pushed on whoever wouldn't argue back. I saw someone carrying more than anyone should, and not once did I see you step in to lift any of it. Travis looked like he wanted to respond, but he closed his mouth again. Zayden turned to Rhea. How long have you been keeping this place running without enough staff? She hesitated. A few weeks. Maybe longer. And you? He asked Jonas. He rubbed the back of his neck. Since early spring. Zayden nodded once, then stepped behind the counter and pulled the store phone from its cradle. He dialed. Cheryl? Yeah, it's Zayden. I need you to meet me at store 2. Tonight. Bring the employee files for this location and district reports from the last quarter. And get someone from HR on standby. We're making changes. He hung up and turned back to them. You all can head home. Your shifts are over. I'll handle the close. Rhea blinked. You're sure? You've done more than enough, Zayden said. I'll see you both tomorrow. You're not scheduled, but come in anyway. Paid, of course. Jonas hesitated. What for? Zayden glanced at him. Because I want to hear more about your son. And because you've earned more than a paycheck. By the time they left, the store was silent again. Zayden sat on a stockroom stool, elbows on his knees, staring at the concrete floor. He'd built the company to be different. Not perfect, but fair. And somewhere along the way, that promise had been buried under layers of policies and middle managers who measured success by margins instead of people. Cheryl arrived 40 minutes later, a stack of folders under one arm and a laptop in the other. You're serious? She asked as she stepped inside. Very, Zayden said. Start with Travis. I want his full review history, and I want to know why his last 3 employee exits were labeled voluntary but flagged for possible burnout. As she opened her laptop, he stood and walked to the office, flipping on the light and pulling out the chair Travis usually sat in. He opened the bottom drawer and found the schedule book. No one had covered Jonas's shifts even once in the last 2 months. He'd been carrying double loads without backup. He closed the drawer. The next morning, the store didn't open at 10. Instead, the windows were covered with paper and a sign on the door read closed for inventory reopening tomorrow. Inside, Zayden stood at the front with Cheryl, 2 HR reps, and a regional manager from headquarters. At 10:30, Jonas and Rhea arrived looking unsure. Come in, Zayden said. We've got some things to go over. They stepped inside, glancing around at the group. First, Zayden said, I want to be clear. You're not in trouble. In fact, you're the reason we're fixing things. He motioned to the table where 2 chairs had been set up. Sit down. We've got some things to run past you. Once they were seated, Cheryl pulled out a folder and handed it to Jonas. He opened it slowly, then frowned. This is your new compensation package, she said. Effective immediately. You'll be bumped to full-time salaried. Health coverage upgraded. And a hardship bonus added to your next 4 pay periods. Jonas stared at the page, then looked up. I didn't ask for. You didn't have to, Zayden said. You earned it. And more. He turned to Rhea and handed her a different envelope. You're being promoted to assistant store lead. Not just because you're capable, but because you've already been doing most of the job without the title or the pay. Her mouth opened slightly. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Zayden said. And help us build this back the right way. He stepped back. We're restructuring the store. Travis is being reassigned pending a full review. A new manager from HQ will be rotating in for now. But long term? I want someone who knows this place. Someone who's lived it. He looked at Rhea. She blinked. Me? Not today. But soon, he said. If you want it. We'll support you through training, mentorship, whatever you need. Jonas finally spoke. Why are you doing this? Zayden leaned against the counter. Because I forgot what it feels like to be on the floor. To be the one doing the hard work while decisions are made from far away. I let too much slip through because I stopped looking close enough. He crossed his arms. I can't fix everything overnight, but I can start here, with the people who actually make this company what it is. Jonas looked down at the folder in his hands again, then closed it quietly. My son's got another procedure next month, he said. They said it's risky. We've been trying to save for it. Zayden nodded. We'll cover it. Full cost. No strings. Jonas didn't respond right away. He just looked at the table. I've never had anyone do that before, he said. Then it's long overdue, Zayden replied. They stayed another hour talking through ideas for better scheduling, ways to reduce burnout, and what kind of leadership training could help shift the culture. Rhea had a list ready, things she'd been thinking about for months but never knew who to share with. Jonas added small notes here and there, mostly logistical, how long certain tasks really took, how much time was wasted on inefficient systems. By 1 in the afternoon, they were done. As they stood, Rhea tucked her papers under one arm. You're really serious about changing this? Zayden looked her in the eye. I'm not here for press releases. I'm here to rebuild what I should have protected from the beginning. Jonas shook his hand before leaving. His grip was firm, not out of formality, but something steadier. Grounded. Zayden stood in the empty store long after they'd gone. The shelves were still stocked, the counters still clean. But everything felt different. He didn't just see a store anymore. He saw the people who held it up. The following week, Zayden returned to headquarters. He didn't walk through the front. He used the side entrance near shipping, the one where freight drivers unloaded pallets. He wanted to see who nodded, who looked away, who recognized him without the suit and tie. In the executive wing, his assistant handed him a thick folder. You've got 3 meetings today. Legal review, vendor contracts, and your advisory call with finance. He glanced at the clock. Push the first 2. Move finance to the afternoon. She tilted her head. Everything okay? He held up the folder. Let's just say I've been reminded what's worth prioritizing. In his office, he skimmed through internal audits and employee feedback for the other 4 stores. Store 4 had a similar pattern to Store 2: long shifts, sudden departures, and a manager who never clocked overtime despite being present most weekends. Store 5 showed inconsistent scheduling data, a cashier listed as working 38 hours but paid for only 31. He picked up his phone and made a single call. Jess, set up a rotation. I want to visit every location before the quarter ends. No press. No lead time. I'll be going in as a trainee again. That afternoon, he met with Camille, the new interim manager at Store 2. She'd flown in from Denver and already had notes. I met with the team twice, she said. Jonas is adjusting to the new role well. Not officially promoted, but he's already mentoring the newer hires. Rhea's implementing a shift feedback log, voluntary, anonymous. It's helping surface day-to-day friction before it escalates. Zayden nodded. What about the culture? Quiet. Not tense, just cautious. They're not used to being listened to. He leaned back. Then we keep listening. 2 days later, he returned to store 2 unannounced. No disguise this time. He walked through the front door during lunch rush. Jonas was helping a customer pair a Bluetooth mic to a speaker. Ria was coaching a new hire on the register. When Jonas spotted him, he didn't pause. He finished the setup, handed the customer their receipt, then approached. "Didn't expect to see you today. I'm just stopping in." Jonas motioned toward the back. "Want to talk in the stockroom?" Zayden followed. Inside, the shelves had been reorganized, labels cleaner, fewer loose items. The air smelled faintly of citrus cleaner, a small shift, but telling. Jonas pulled a stool from under the counter and sat. "I got the paperwork for Elias's next procedure," he said. "The foundation your team connected me with? They're walking us through the logistics." Zayden sat across from him. "And how's he doing?" "He's eating again. Not a lot, but enough that he's not dropping weight. His breathing's steadier, too, I think. He's just glad I'm home more." Zayden nodded. "That matters." Jonas rested his hands on his knees. "I kept thinking someone like you, someone running a company, you'd be too far removed to care." Zayden looked down at the floor, then up again. "I was," he said, "for too long." Jonas's eyes didn't narrow, didn't soften. They just stayed steady. "I don't know what this job turns into," he said, "but I'm not going anywhere. Not if things stay like this." Zayden stood. "Then let's make sure they do." He stepped out front where Ria was reviewing inventory logs. She glanced up. "Can I borrow you for a minute?" They walked to the side hallway near the fuse box, away from foot traffic. "You've been taking initiative," he said. Her eyebrows raised slightly. "Trying to keep things moving. I read your notes on the shift feedback," he added. "Good insight. Especially the part about downtime patterns and redirecting energy instead of just filling hours." She folded her arms. "I've worked places where managers filled the schedule just to hit numbers. Didn't care if people stood around, just wanted the spreadsheet right. I don't want that here." He hesitated. "You still want to lead this store?" She didn't answer right away. "If I do, I want it done right. Not just a new nameplate. I want training. I want to shadow someone who handles conflict without freezing. I want to know how to build a team, not just schedule one." Zayden nodded. "You'll get it. And I don't want to be the only one," she added. "Jonas has a way of reading people. He doesn't push, but he sees what they need. That's not common." Zayden smiled slightly. "Noted." That evening, he sat in a quiet office at headquarters with a whiteboard. On it, he wrote 5 names, one from each store. People who'd stood out not by talking loud, but by holding things together quietly. He circled them, then wrote 3 words above the list: ground-up council. The next morning, he brought it to his leadership team. "We're restructuring how decisions get made," he said. "This council will meet monthly. They'll have access to department heads. No middle filters. If they raise an issue, it gets logged and tracked." One of the VPs raised a hand. "How do you select them?" "They've already been selected. Based on what they've done, not what they've asked for." Another exec leaned forward. "You're giving store-level employees direct input on policy?" Zayden didn't blink. "I'm giving them the influence they've already earned." There was quiet in the room. Not resistance, just recalibration. 3 weeks later, the first council meeting was held in a converted training room. Jonas sat beside a woman from Store 4 who'd built a community tech class during off hours. Ria sat across from a former Marine who managed logistics at Store 1. Zayden didn't run the meeting. He listened, took notes, asked questions only when the room fell quiet. Midway through, Jonas raised a point. "We don't have to make every policy from scratch," he said. "But we do need someone who can explain why certain rules exist. Not just say, 'That's how it's always been.'" The others nodded. Zayden looked at the board behind them. A dozen ideas already listed. None of them about profit margins. All of them about people. The meeting ended with a single takeaway. Pilot a new training program designed by staff, not corporate. Ria volunteered to draft the outline. Jonas offered to review for clarity. As the room emptied, Zayden stayed behind. He stood at the window watching the parking lot below. It was late, the lights casting long shadows across the asphalt. He didn't feel like a CEO in that moment. He felt like a student trying to earn back trust. And that was exactly where he needed to be. The following month brought a shift that couldn't be measured in charts or earnings. It moved quieter than revenue spikes or employee churn. But Zayden noticed it in every hallway, every conversation that didn't drop its volume when someone from corporate walked by. He returned to store 2 without setting a date. No cameras, no prep team, just a rental car and a hat pulled low over his eyes. Not to blend in, just to keep the visit from becoming a spectacle. Inside, the floor looked the same. The lighting hadn't changed, but the energy was different. Employees spoke to each other without glancing over their shoulders. There was more motion without chaos, more rhythm without strain. Ria stood near the service counter, reviewing an equipment return with a trainee who couldn't have been more than 19. She didn't rush him, let him fumble through the steps, and asked open-ended questions when he hesitated. Zayden waited until she finished before stepping forward. "I'm not interrupting anything, am I?" She gave a nod instead of a greeting. "You're not on any schedule I've seen. I'm not checking inventory. Just here to listen." She motioned toward the side hallway. They walked past the break room into the old office, now shared by 2 shift leads. A whiteboard leaned against the far wall, filled with handwritten notes. Color-coded magnets marked recurring problems and proposed changes. "You're using the board," he said. "It's faster than waiting for someone at HQ to read a report," she said. "We update it daily. Green if it's resolved. Red if it's escalating. Yellow if it's in progress." He scanned the list. One note read, "Customer returns process still too slow, policy doesn't match system." Another, "Trainees need more time with actual product setups." "You wrote these?" he asked. "Some. Others came from Jonas and a few from the new hires. Looks like they're paying attention." "They always were. They just stopped saying anything when no one listened." He leaned against the doorframe. "You still want to run this location long term?" "I want more than that," she said. "Eventually, I want to help open a new one. But not with the old playbook." He raised an eyebrow. "I don't want to copy a process that needs constant damage control," she said. "I want a model that can scale without burning through people." He nodded once. "You'll have that chance." She didn't thank him. She didn't need to. It was clear she already considered it her responsibility, not a favor. He left her to work and walked through the back corridor. The noise in the stockroom was sharper now, more organized. Boxes stacked in tighter rows, equipment bins labeled in permanent marker instead of tape. Jonas stood by the side shelf, adjusting a display mount with a power drill in one hand and an instruction sheet in the other. Zayden stepped in. "Didn't expect to catch you building things by hand?" Jonas didn't look up. "Didn't expect you to visit twice." "I've been thinking about something," Zayden said. Jonas set the drill down and turned, wiping his hands on a rag. "Go on. When we talked last time, you said something about not knowing what this job would turn into." "I've got an answer now." Jonas didn't react. Just waited. "There's a position opening on the training development side," Zayden said. "It's hybrid, part field, part design. We need someone who understands what actually happens here. Someone who's been in the mess." Jonas crossed his arms. "You're offering me a desk job?" "No. I'm offering you influence. You'd be creating onboarding frameworks, designing mentorship timelines, and building a feedback loop that includes people from the floor up. You'd be shaping how new hires learn not just what, but who from." Jonas paced once, then stopped. "I don't want to be a name on a chart. I'm not interested in titles." "Neither am I," Zayden said. "But I need someone who speaks plain and knows when a system is wasting people's time. That's you." Jonas didn't answer immediately. Instead, he picked up the mount and fastened the last screw into place. Then he stood and faced Zayden directly. "I'll do it," he said. "But I'm not leaving this store behind. If I take this, I still want a hand in what happens here. Consider it part of the job." Later that week, HR sent out a quiet announcement. No press, no email blasts. Just an internal update. Jonas Rivera appointed field training architect, effective immediately. Reporting structure adjusted. Pay scale modified. Relocation not required. At store 2, no one threw a party. No balloons. No cake. Just a shift change and a new name on the calendar for the weekly feedback roundtable. That Friday, Zayden met with Cheryl in a quiet corner of the HQ cafe. He brought 2 coffees and a printed list. "What's this?" she asked. "Stores I want to visit next quarter," he said. "But I'm not going undercover again. This time, I want to be visible. I want them to know I'm there, and I want them to tell me what I've missed." She flipped through the pages. You're going to hear some things you won't like. I better, he said. She paused. You're not trying to fix everything in a day, are you? No, he said. But I'm done thinking I can lead from a distance. That Monday, Rhea led her first full store meeting. Not because someone asked her to. Because she saw gaps in communication and filled them. The meeting lasted 17 minutes. Everyone left with clarity on the week's plan and a written record of what had been said. No one was overbooked. No one was ignored. 2 new hires who'd barely spoken before contributed suggestions for reorganizing the front display table. Their layout tested higher in foot traffic conversion the following week. Jonas, now splitting time between field work and development, began gathering stories, not numbers, not metrics, but lived experiences from the floor. He compiled them into case files, anonymized but detailed. One outlined how a single shift lead prevented a technical failure by catching a mislabeled shipment. Another described a cashier who de-escalated a volatile return with no training, only instinct. Both stories were added to the new training modules. Zayden reviewed the first set personally. He circled one line in red ink. Trust isn't built through announcements. It's built when people see you coming back. By the end of the quarter, turnover at Store 2 dropped by over half. Not because of bonuses or perks, but because people stopped dreading Mondays. Zayden didn't mark the changes with speeches or press statements. He didn't need to. The changes were visible in the way people showed up early, focused, and without the weight of being unseen. One evening, as the sun disappeared behind the lot, he stood outside the store, watching the lights shut off one by one. His phone buzzed. A message from Jonas. Elias came home today. Procedure went well. He asked if you still have that weird hat. Zayden smiled and typed back. Tell him I wear it less now. People know who I am. He put the phone away and looked through the glass. Not at the shelves. Not at the signage. At the people. And for the first time in a long time, he saw a company worth following because it remembered who it was built for. The last time Zayden had visited Store 3, it had been for a ribbon cutting. That was nearly 4 years ago, and at the time, the space still smelled of fresh drywall and new plastic. Now the gloss had worn off. The parking lot had a few sun-faded lines, the sign above the entrance had a flickering panel, and the automatic doors made a low grind before opening wide. He didn't come for a walkthrough. He came because the regional reports noted a strange pattern: no official complaints, no late shipments, no visible issues. But the staff turnover was the highest in the company. People left within weeks of training, some after only a few days. He stepped inside and was greeted by a silence that didn't belong in retail. No music, no chatter. The energy was flat. A floor associate folded packaging near the returns desk without looking up. 2 others stood at the back, checking devices, barely speaking. The manager, a man named Dennis, approached with a clipboard and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Didn't expect you in today, he said. Everything all right? Zayden glanced around. I'm not here for an audit. Dennis looked mildly puzzled. Then, I'm here because I want to understand why no one stays. Dennis shifted his weight. We've had some hiring challenges, but nothing unusual. Market's tough. Gen Z doesn't like staying in one place. You know how it is. Zayden stepped past him. I don't buy generalizations, he said. I came to speak with people who've actually been here. He approached the associate at the returns desk. She looked up when he stopped a few feet away. I'm Zayden, he said. You mind if I ask how long you've been here? She glanced toward Dennis, then back. 3 weeks. You planning to stay? She hesitated. I was. But there's no point asking for help here. You're expected to know everything by week 1. Zayden nodded once. Who trains new hires? Dennis. Or sometimes Alec. But mostly you're given a binder and told to shadow people who are already swamped. He turned to Dennis. That sound accurate? Dennis didn't respond directly. We're understaffed. Everyone's doing their best. Zayden didn't reply. He walked the floor for another hour, speaking with 3 more employees. One was planning to transfer. Another had already given notice. The third admitted she hadn't even unpacked her employee welcome packet. Later, he sat down in a nearby cafe with a notebook. He didn't write bullet points. He wrote moments. Phrases people used. The way they looked around before answering. The tone behind the words. When he returned to headquarters, he didn't schedule a meeting. He walked into the learning and development wing unannounced. Who designed the onboarding process for Store 3? He asked the training coordinator. It uses the standard packet and video modules, the coordinator replied. Same as the other stores. Then why does it fall apart there? The coordinator hesitated. We've never had direct feedback from that location. The manager always reports completion rates above 90%. Have you checked beyond the reports? No. Zayden crossed his arms. That's changing now. He spent the next 2 days reviewing hiring exit interviews from Store 3. Most were vague phrases like not a good fit or personal reasons, but a few handwritten notes stood out. One mentioned being left alone on the floor without access codes. Another referenced being reprimanded for asking too many questions. He picked up the phone and called HR, put Store 3 on the council's next rotation. I want someone from the field team embedded there for a full week. Unannounced. No one from management should know who they are. The following Monday, that person was Jonas. He didn't show up in a suit or with a badge. He wore store colors, clocked in as a temporary floater, and went through the motions. On day 2, he texted Zayden a single sentence, everything looks fine until you ask for help. On day 4, he called after hours. They're not hostile, he said. They're just checked out. No one trusts anyone above them to care. That's the real issue. Zayden listened without interrupting. Dennis doesn't yell. He doesn't belittle anyone, Jonas continued. He just doesn't engage. You could be struggling 2 feet from him and he wouldn't look up. Is he aware of what's happening? I think he's convinced silence means success. As long as no one's complaining, he assumes he's doing fine. Zayden sat with that. The next morning, he scheduled a meeting with Dennis. In person. They sat in a quiet conference room, no assistants, no observers. I've been reviewing performance and turnover from your location, Zayden said. I want to hear your take. Dennis leaned back. It's a tough market. I've said that before. I'm not asking about the market, Zayden said. I'm asking about your store. Dennis sighed. Look, I follow protocol. I fill shifts. I hit sales numbers. No one's come to me with issues. Why do you think that is? Dennis didn't answer. Zayden set down a folder. These are comments from your former staff. They didn't file complaints because they didn't think it would matter. I can't change people's expectations. No, Zayden said. But you can change how you lead. Dennis frowned. I wasn't hired to be a babysitter. Zayden's voice didn't rise. You were hired to guide a team. That means creating an environment where people are equipped, not just scheduled. Dennis looked down. I'm not saying you're malicious, Zayden added. But neglect can be just as damaging. What do you want me to do? Dennis asked quietly. Start over, Zayden said. Not with the store. With how you approach it. You'll be shadowing Rhea at Store 2 for the next 3 weeks. She's going to show you what engagement looks like. Dennis blinked. You're sending me to be trained by a floor lead? She's not a floor lead anymore. And yes. Dennis hesitated. What if I say no? Then we'll revisit your fit within the company. The next day, Dennis reported to Store 2. Rhea wasn't vindictive. She brought him into meetings, let him sit in on feedback sessions, and walked him through her systems. She didn't lecture. She demonstrated. By week 2, Dennis stopped asking surface questions and started listening. He wrote down notes, shadowed shifts, spoke with staff directly. When he returned to Store 3, he didn't bring a new policy. He brought a new posture. He held one-on-ones with every employee. Removed the silent binder from training and replaced it with a mentorship pairing system. He designated 1 hour per week strictly for feedback, open, optional, and documented. Turnover slowed. Not overnight, but enough that people stopped looking over their shoulders. Zayden visited again 6 weeks later. This time, 3 employees greeted him by name. The music was back on. The lighting had been fixed. He spoke with one associate near the checkout. How's it going now? She smiled. Not wide, just enough. Feels like someone's finally in the room with us. That night, Zayden walked through the offices alone. Most lights were off. He entered the quiet training room where the council had first met. The whiteboard still held outlines from the last session. He erased a corner and wrote a single phrase. Presence is policy. He put the marker down and stepped outside into the parking lot. The air cool and sharp. He no longer led from above. He led alongside,